Hi, everybody. Mike here, MAGA Headline News. Guys, Kaitlan Collins, she knows better, and we got the proof, okay? So what motivates her? What motivates people like her to do the damage they do to our country? We know that the Democrats take advantage of the low IQ citizen. I think to myself sometimes, could I go out there and trash Trump, trash my country, lead people away from patriotism, lead people away from the safety net of our freedom and our Constitution for money? I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I don't know how some people do. Is it money? I believe with some it is. Is it blackmail? Probably with some it is. And is it threatening? And probably with some it is. I always like to make the reference back to the show Prison Break. I believe the people that created that show is one of the last non-woke shows ever made. And if you go back and look at it, there was the entity in that show all throughout every season called The Company. And I think that was a light version of the deep state being portrayed. And I think they did their best to show people what was really going on. And especially with the shooting of the two lawmakers in Tim Walz's state the other day, with the guy dressed up as a police officer, that clicked in me. So it reminded me of so many different scenarios from the show Prison Break. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, let's get into, I want to play a few videos of Kaitlan Collins when she first started her career. And this really wasn't that long ago. And it wasn't until 2017, 18, all of a sudden, she came out as this anti-Trump, anti-everything, woke, whatever, in a blink of an eye. How do you switch from this, what I'm about to show you, to what she's doing now in a blink of an eye? Check this out, okay? Because she knows better, and we know it now.
And I think that the Democratic Party needs to answer questions about this guy who they're so embedded with.
Sure. We know that Hillary Clinton has supported the Black Lives Matter movement. We also know, according to these leaked documents, apparently he supports some of these efforts that started with Ferguson, right, for social justice. Explain that.
Right. His Open Society Foundation has given over $500,000 to Black Lives Matter because they want to be able to support Black Lives Matters as it grows. They're worried, that they won't know how to grow properly, and they want to help them.
Anti-Soros, anti-Black Lives Matter. Her face is not frozen. What's going on here?
Dismantle structural inequality. That was in one of the memos that was released in the data dump.
What does that mean?
They basically want to help Black Lives Matter further their agenda. And I think it's an issue also that the Democratic Party needs to address, because so many Democrats have openly endorsed Black Lives Matter. And now that we see that this guy who is funding Hillary Clinton is also funding Black Lives Matter, that's a problem. And that's something that Americans should be aware of.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me right now? In her own words, it's a problem. George Soros funding Hillary Clinton, funding the destruction of America. In her own words, I don't even understand how she goes on CNN to say the things she says and supports the things she supports with videos like this out there. And you want to know something? There's many more, which I got a couple of them. But you know something? I've been doing some research, and it seems that these things are being scrubbed from the internet as fast as people could find them. That there used to be a lot of them out there. There used to be tons of articles out there. She started with the Daily Caller, and now all you find is a couple of garbage articles, something about the Obama's kids and a couple other things. But apparently the good stuff is all being scrubbed. Check this one out right here. Here's another one with Tucker Carlson, okay?
Covered by the press, there are a lot of them. A ton of reporters, including many White House correspondents, prefer to push conspiracies without evidence rather than ask about real issues. And they don't like it when reporters with a different agenda enter their safe space. In fact, including to one reporter, dissidents in the White House briefing room are resented and bullied for not adhering to a certain line. Kaitlan Collins is a White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. She's new to the beat, and she joins us now. Kaitlan, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So there was this amazing moment in January. So Sean Spice, the new press secretary, asked the first question, not to the AP reporter, but to the reporter from the New York Post. All of a sudden, there was this uproar on Twitter. Reporters who literally weren't even born when Barack Obama was elected were complaining about the breach of tradition. Why the resentment?
The press is throwing a royal tantrum because they can't control what the country is talking about. For the last 8 years, they've all decided what the question should be, and they've all gone in there and asked the same question. And now that they're not being called on, they can't control what the news is about, and it's driving them crazy.
So you show up there right after the inauguration. You haven't covered the White House before. You don't work at the Boston Globe or the New York Times. What kind of reception did you get?
It's definitely a little tense, but I'm not really there to impress them. I'm there to ask the questions my readers.
Just so you guys know, she's talking about like the first time she showed up, she was named the White House reporter, and she showed up as a conservative, which she is apparently, and asked a question that was outside of what that press group that they have that thinks they control everything, outside of what they wanted, and they attacked her for it. They went crazy, and she's defending herself and trashing them. Now she is the hierarchy of that press association that thinks they control the White House. Amazing. How do you ascend to that? How does that happen overnight?
Want answered, and I'm not there to ask what they want me to ask. I don't get the questions that CNN wants. I don't get the questions that MSNBC wants. I ask what my readers want me to ask, because outside in the real world where the other 300 million people live, they don't care about, personnel issues that MSNBC is asking.
So you actually took some heat from other reporters when you, at a press conference at the moment when Mike Flynn was having all his troubles, National Security Advisor, you asked a question to the podium about what the foreign policy challenges facing the country are. And what was the response to that?
It was very heated. I got a lot of criticism on Twitter. A lot of people came up to me and asked if the White House told me what to ask, which is offensive. And I asked a big picture question about national security and who we're going to get into a war with next. And that matters more to real people than a personnel question of who's working in the White House. No one will remember Mike Flynn's name by next year.
I think that's totally fair. You're obviously pretty immune to the criticism of your peers. But what effect does it have, that kind of groupthink or that enforced conformity, on other reporters there?
It's definitely not a good mix for that, because then other people feel pressured to ask what everyone else is asking. They look up to someone on their left and they're asking about, wiretapping, so they ask about wiretapping as well. But the point of 75 reporters being in that briefing room is that we all ask different questions.
Right.
If we all go in there and ask the same question 10 different ways, what does that accomplish? Who does that serve?
So the president has attacked the press intensely, like no other president has ever gone after the press like this. What does that do to the reporters covering the briefing every day?
People are a little hysterical about his criticism. Yes, he hates the press. Yes, he's very vocal about it. But what president has not hated the press? We make their lives harder, and they all hate.
Defending Trump? Who is this person? I got to tell you something. I watched this actually happen to a mayor one time about 10 years ago. In my local community, that was promising to fix so many problems, and when he was running for office, and literally he transformed into exactly what she transformed into the day he took office. What completely as robotic as she is today. Right now it's like she's loose, she's smiling, she's a person. Now she's a complete robot, and that's the exact same thing I saw in this mayor, which I couldn't believe that it happened. I was witnessing it with my own eyes back then in the day. It was really somewhat of a spectacle, and it left me completely confused. It was, when I was first really, this was probably like 12, 13 years ago when I was first getting into politics.
Hate us. They may not all talk about it, but they definitely hate us.
Yes, they do.
So, but people are taking it really personally, and you shouldn't take the president's criticism personally. It shouldn't affect your reporting. But you can tell when you read the New York Times and CNN that it does affect their reporting, and that's not what should happen. I don't take my cues from the president. I report on him. I don't report to him.
So you think that there's a personal element to this? They don't like
Definitely.
him because he criticized.
Because he calls them out by their names, and they don't like that. And then they get a lot of heat on Twitter, and then it makes them resent him, not for his policies and not for not following through on his campaign promises, but for who he is as a person. And that's not your.
How funny is it that she has turned into exactly what she's describing that these reporters are? She has literally embodied them. She has become exactly what she's describing right here.
your job. Your job is not to get your feelings hurt.
No, that's exactly right. Twitter seems to play a huge role in the attitudes of White House reporters.
It does. It feeds their egos. They like to know how many people follow them, who's praising them. You should not pay attention to anything anyone says on the internet, though.
That is pathetic. Do you see people checking Twitter in the briefing?
Constantly. Everyone's updating it constantly. They're tweeting. It's a big part of it. But that's understandable. The president uses Twitter a lot. It's a new medium that everyone is, refascinated with Donald Trump being in the White House.
Boy, I'm sorry. I don't like the.
Meanwhile, when she did her flip, she was criticizing Trump all the time because he was using Twitter. Okay. This really is shocking that it's like I said, it's not just her. This is happening to many Americans. And like I said, money, blackmail, threatening, whatever. I believe it's all happening. We don't know what, we don't know who's receiving what, why, when. Obviously, there's no evidence of that, but there's no explanation for this. How do you change from the person you actually are into something completely different and robotic overnight? It blows my mind. And this is a big problem we're dealing with in this country, especially, here she is here where Tucker has her on. And, if Tucker's going to put you on his program back then, you're obviously an up and rising star in the conservative world. All right. All of a sudden, the switch. I would love to see somebody confront her on all of this live. Let her watch this, confront her on all of this, and see what she has to say. And the reason that I say this is because the amount of I don't know, for lack of a better term, trouble she starts, the lies, the spreading of lies, the spreading of propaganda, false narratives that she's done. She is like the main person for CNN to do this stuff. And she knows better. She knows exactly what George Soros is doing. She knows exactly what the mass migration is doing. This is coming from her own mouth. I don't have to accuse her of knowing better. She knows better.
The president uses Twitter. I don't like the reporters use Twitter. I just think it's weird, but I guess I'm not in charge. Kaitlan Collins, thanks for joining us of the Daily Caller. Full disclosure, I helped found the Daily Caller, but no longer have an editorial.
So, I have one last clip. It's just very quick. It'll take 2 seconds. It's of her interviewing people on the comparison between Trump and Ronald Reagan.
Similarities between him and Donald Trump. Do you see that at all after researching for this role?
No, not really. I think they both wore a little makeup.
It's not fair to do that because Ronald Reagan was a unique blend of an actor.
And you can see she's happy to do it. She interviews all these people, all of them. See? All these about Trump being the comparison to Ronald Reagan. Okay? It's not just her. There's tons of them out there. There's tons of Democrat politicians out there that are doing this. And we need to call it out. And something, I do believe she owes America an explanation when you have so many people following you and so many people believing your lies, so many people believing your false narratives. I do believe, Kaitlan, you owe the American people an explanation because it's not fair to the low IQ Democrat voters that you serve. Okay, guys, my name is Mike. This has been MAGA Headline News. Guys, subscribe if you like my content. Like I said, I'm just starting out. I'm trying to get my subscribers up. I do not use any of the AI scripts. I don't cut my videos. You get exactly me. You get it. You get me raw. You get my thoughts, my opinions. I don't see too much of that nowadays anymore. So if you do like my content, press subscribe, like, share. All right, guys, have a good night.